Begin with breaking news here. 6:31 is the time, and we're working to learn if any arrests were made during overnight protests in Minneapolis. It comes as we mark exactly 1 week to the day since an agent shot and killed Renee Good, sparking outrage across the Twin Cities and really the nation.
So we're live this morning at the growing memorial for her. This is near 34th and Portland. Later at 9:37, the time when Good was shot, the community plans to hold a prayer service to honor and remember her.
We do have team coverage for you here on this Wednesday. Kelsey Christensen outside the U.S. District Court building in Minneapolis. Brandy Powell breaking down efforts to allow lawmakers access to ICE facilities.
First, though, Bailey Hurley joins us live at the scene near the U of M where those overnight protests happened. Bailey.
It's very quiet here now, Christian, Megan, but that was not the case just even a few hours ago. Take a look at some of this video. You can see just how many people were here outside of the Graduate Hotel in Dinkytown. Hundreds were here, horns honking, whistles blowing, some even beating on pots and pans, others shining lights, flashlights into hotel windows, all of that in an effort to disturb the ICE agents that these protesters believe are staying here. It's something we saw at the end of last week as well. You might remember protesters gathered outside of a different Hilton hotel just a few blocks from here in downtown Minneapolis. That protest, though, did get a bit out of hand. MPD does say that protesters in that one last Friday threw snow, rocks, and ice at officers as well as squad cars. Property damage also reported in that protest. In total, we know, again, this all last Friday, 29 people were detained in that situation. Both of these protests happening in front of or outside of Hilton hotels. They have been under fire recently for both housing and cooperating with ICE agents here in the Twin Cities. Again, we have reached out to MPD to learn if there have been any arrests or anyone detained in last night's protests here in Dinkytown. If there was any property damage, again, though, it is very quiet here right now. We'll continue to keep you updated as the morning progresses, though. Chris, Megan.
Okay, Bailey, thank you. Now, that was not the only protest that was happening last night. This was the scene from the corner of Minnehaha and White Bear Avenue in St. Paul. It's about 8 o'clock. Our 5 Eyewitness News photographer was there. You can see people waving flags, holding signs to the cars that were driving by, many of them honking. The City Council Vice President posted on social media that federal agents have been going door to door looking for Asian residents in St. Paul. We have not been told if there were any arrests that were made there.
And at the Whipple building in Fort Snelling, federal agents used tear gas and sprayed eye irritants on activists Tuesday night. Video shows federal officers deploying flashbangs into a small crowd of protesters from across the Whipple Federal Building. On Monday, Homeland Security officials say that about 45 rioters threatened and assaulted law enforcement, launching fireworks and throwing bottles, ice chunks, and other objects. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has said repeatedly that anyone who obstructs or assaults law enforcement will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Now, meanwhile, also breaking this morning at 6:34, a federal judge in Minneapolis holding an emergency hearing today over Minnesota's lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security.
State and local leaders are trying to stop the surge of federal ICE agents to the state. Our team coverage continues now. Kelsey Christensen live outside the U.S. District Court in Minneapolis with what's expected at this hearing happening in just a couple hours. Kelsey.
Hi, Chris and Megan. Yeah, that is right. This morning, the state is seeking a restraining order to stop the surge of federal agents here in the state of Minnesota. That lawsuit filed by Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison and Twin Cities mayors is calling this a, quote, federal invasion, as more than 2,000 federal agents were deployed to Minnesota. That lawsuit claims unconstitutional stops, economic damage, and more than $2 million in extra public safety costs for Minneapolis. They also claim the Twin Cities are being targeted because of sanctuary policies here and punishing political opponents. We spoke with a local political analyst who calls this a strong lawsuit because it argues federal agents are limiting the 10th Amendment, which in part reinforces the balance of power limiting federal authority. However, in response to that lawsuit, Homeland Security is defending this operation, pointing to 2,000 arrests in 5 weeks, saying the state is ignoring public safety. Lots to watch unfold here this morning in downtown Minneapolis. That hearing is set to happen in just a few hours at 8:30. We will be there and bringing the very latest updates. Guys.
Okay, Kels, thank you. Also tracking another emergency hearing today, this one in Washington, after 3 Minnesota Congress members were blocked from visiting the Whitfield building. That's where ICE's main operations are happening.
Brandy Powell is here with what today's hearing could mean for access moving forward. Brandy.
Megan, Chris, the Congress members' lawyers arguing Congress must be able to conduct oversight at ICE detention facilities without notice in order to obtain urgent and essential information, they say, for funding negotiations, ongoing funding negotiations. However, the Department of Homeland Security, for its part, is saying unannounced visits require pulling ICE officers from their normal duties and stress that the effort was made to ensure adequate protection for members of Congress, congressional staff, detainees, and ICE employees alike. This request for this emergency hearing coming after U.S. representatives from Minnesota, Ilhan Omar, Kelly Morrison, and Angie Craig attempted to tour the local ICE facility. They were initially allowed to enter over the weekend, but say they were blocked from being in there about 10 minutes later. The administration now requires members of Congress to request the visits 7 days in advance. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem signing the policy, saying any shorter requests must be approved by her. Political science and law professor David Schultz telling our news team any argument would have to be made to a judge.
Is there anything that the Department of Homeland Security can argue to say we had to do this?
For example, there was some major security issue that had emerged as a result in the last few days. Maybe they would be justified in doing it, but still what they should have done is to gone back to court.
All right, big picture here. Keep in mind this particular filing is part of an ongoing court case over congressional access to detainees. And this emergency hearing in Washington starts in a couple hours here, 8:30 our time. We'll track what happens. Chris, Megan.
Brandy, thank you. Now, a group of residents planning to bring up the possible ICE facility in Woodbury at a city council meeting tonight. The Washington Post listed the city as a potential site, but county and city officials say they haven't heard from ICE and they have no details about any plans.
Commissioners did say, though, they do not support an ICE facility there, citing humanitarian concerns and a financial loss.
There is no one on this board that supports an ICE detention center. We can't afford it. Financially.
Not everyone in the community agrees. On the City of Woodbury's Facebook page, folks are commenting. One person posted in part, we should support our federal law enforcement officers. We are also tracking a search for replacements this morning after the unexpected resignations of 6 federal prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Minnesota, among them Joe Thompson, who played a key role in the fight against fraud.
So reports say that it comes over the DOJ's directive to investigate the wife of Renee Good for connections to activist groups and their reluctance to investigate the agent who fired that gun. A former U.S. attorney tells us that he now worries about the integrity of the work going forward.
The investigation of Miss Good's killing requires really good investigators working together with other really good investigators. And it's pretty clear to me that that is going to be extremely difficult to accomplish with this many people gone and without the state being involved.
It's former U.S. Attorney Tom Heffelfinger there. He went on to say that this is not common. The leader of Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension called Thompson's departure a setback for public safety, but adds they'll continue to work with the U.S. Attorney's Office on cases of violent crime and fraud. Now, the Justice Department did say on Tuesday that it will not open a civil rights investigation into the shooting death of Good. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says that there is no basis for a criminal civil rights probe. An FBI investigation is still underway. Federal officials say that the officer acted in self-defense.
More Minnesota students are planning a protest today, adding to a growing list of walkouts across the state. We just received word a short time ago that some St. Paul public school students plan to walk out of class and march to the state capitol. They say that students from other schools are also planning to attend that march. They're calling for accountability in Renee Good's shooting death and demanding that ICE leave Minnesota. This is some video from Chopper 5 of some of the walkouts that happened yesterday. This story changing moment by moment, folks, and we are working to keep you updated. We'll keep bringing the latest here while we're on the air and find our coverage anytime with the KSTP app. Time right now is 6.